Welcome back to The Walk and Talk, the podcast designed to keep your hands free, your dog moving, and you having a fabulous time together in the great outdoors, all whilst we fill your brain with all the juicy details on one topic or another from the world of all things dog. If you are new here, hello, my name's Lisa. I'm a multi-award winning dog trainer and absolutely, undeniably one of the biggest canine behaviour nerds you will ever come across. If you are not new around here, thank you so much for coming back. How are you? How is your dog? I truly hope you've had a fabulous week since we last found ourselves together. So today, I thought we could dive into a topic that I think is going to be pretty relatable to just about all of us to a greater or lesser extent. But considering it's a topic that is so often discussed on social media or brought up as a bone of contention by exasperated owners, I thought maybe we could dive a little deeper into understanding why we all face this problem. And that problem is, why in God's name does your dog seem to forget everything they know, everything you've practiced, everything that is right with the laws of time and space and good behavior the second you step outside of the house? Inside, they'll sit beautifully. Outside, squirrel, bird, another dog, leaf, literally anything else becomes more important than you. And the reason this nightmare is worthy of an entire episode in its own right is because I want to get this point across. This is not just disobedience. There is brain chemistry at play. Okay, so if you are happy to, let's get into the neuroscience of why your dog seems to ignore you outdoors and what you can do to work with their brain instead of against it. So, right up top, let's break it down, okay? What are we talking about here? We're talking about attention, right? So, let's look at what attention really is. In fact, let me put it to you before we even go in that we're not actually talking about being ignored by our dogs, because your dog can't ignore something that they never perceived in the first place. The reality is, attention is not just choosing to listen. It is a resource, and it is a limited resource. And just like us, dogs can only focus on so many things at once. In fact, the scientific term here is selective attention, the brain's ability to tune into some things and filter out others, because your dog's brain is actually constantly asking, is this thing relevant? Is it safe? Is it rewarding? Does it predict anything important to me? And when you're outside, the number of things competing for that attention absolutely explodes, doesn't it? If you really stop and think about it, the wind carries smells, there is movement everywhere, there's traffic, birds, people, the wind moving things. There's a massive uptick in sensory feedback from their bodies navigating a walk. There's tension on the lead, the tightness in the collar or the harness, and their brain is on high alert. Now, to understand the impact all this has, we need to understand the concept of saliency. So, what does that word even mean? Well, salient stimuli are things that the brain considers important enough to pay attention to. So, these might be movement, like there's a jogger that runs past or a rabbit hopping across the field ahead. Loud or novel noises, emotional triggers are also in this list, like another dog, especially so if your dog is reactive or nervous or worried about this kind of thing. Reward history is in this list, like that bush next to the bin that they always go past and they always find food in it. So that's important, right? So when your dog is ignoring you to stare at a squirrel or charge toward a dog or forage in that bush, their brain is actually just making a totally rational choice. The squirrel is more salient. You have been outbid. And to be real with you, that's not rudeness or stubbornness or disobedience. That's just basic biology. Now, let's bring reinforcement into the mix. Every time your dog chases a squirrel or sniffs a tree or jumps up at another dog and it feels good because it scratches a biological itch or it reduces their stress or whatever, that is reinforcement. Meanwhile, If you're stood over there calling them repeatedly in a flat tone of voice with no real energy or no real payoff, that is never going to compete. Your reinforcer simply isn't strong enough in that moment against that competition. What's more, the stronger the emotional charge attached to the distraction, and that can be any emotion, the whole range from excitement to fear to frustration, the more powerfully it's reinforced neurologically. Now, not to stress you out too much if you have a teenage dog, because Lord knows you guys are probably stressed enough at the minute. But if your dog is an adolescent, which is anywhere from 5 to 6 months to about 2 years old, depending on your dog's size and their breed, you guys have got another layer of complexity to think about here, because during adolescence, the amygdala in the brain, which is like the emotion center, the drama almond, Captain Panic, I like to call it, this part of the brain is hyperactive, but the prefrontal cortex, Mr. Reason, logic, let's apply some thinking and self control to this situation. This part is very much still in development, it's under construction. So, to explain what that means, your dog literally feels more but can control themselves less. So when sensory input hijacks that system, their brain just says, oh my God, something's happening. And before they can even think, they're already reacting, which really means expecting them to have perfect recall or laser focus in those moments is not just unrealistic, it's neurologically completely unfair. So, what can we actually do about all of this? Do we just admit defeat or do we try and hack the system? Well, you've heard my podcast before. Obviously, you know what we're going to do next. We're going to figure this shit out, right? So, now that we understand the why and we kind of have an idea of what's going on, let's figure out the how. How do we train around this? How do we build a dog that can choose you over distractions? So, here are some science backed strategies. Okay. Number one, you need to increase your value. Train high, then take it low. So, start focus and recall games in low distraction environments. Reinforce the heck out of it. Reinforce heavily with what your dog absolutely loves. Not just what is easy for you to deliver. Literally, go big, go hard, go straight to nuclear, because the emotional association that we create with a new behavior at the beginning is so important. I can't stress that enough. Then you can gradually introduce your distractions, layering them just one step at a time. And a useful way to think about how to structure this is to begin with your neutral distractions, then bring in your positive distractions. Then over time, you can incorporate negative distractions. That's the order to do it in. So that might look like we start learning sit, a really simple one, at home in the living room. We nail it. Then maybe we put the TV on. It's neutral unless your dog is reactive to the TV, but it is a distraction. There's some sound, there's some visual stuff going on. And then we nail it again. Then we bring in the second favorite human. In my house, that would be my husband. I'm absolutely the favorite human, okay? They are a positive distraction because your dog likes this person. Like, they have a positive association with them. And when we nail these, we can think about negative distractions. How does your dog feel about traffic or noisy school children? You could bring in some distracting audio tracks to start with, or you could get out there and start working around these distractions to really build and reinforce resilience and reliability. The key principle to remember here is compete with the world by being better, not louder. That's never going to get you anywhere. And do this step by step. Number two, use saliency to your advantage. We know with dogs that movement draws attention. They're wired to be compelled by it. So use animated body language, excited tone, and pattern games to recapture their focus if it slips. If you're just standing there, you're still, you're flat, and there's a bird flapping over there in the bushes, you will lose. It's as simple as that. And if you are stumped for ideas on where to start with patterning or these movement games that are really designed to ramp up your dog's focus on you and engagement in you, go to my website, listendogtraining.com, and check out my 21-day engagement course. All of the games and exercises that you need for this kind of stuff, they're all in there. And remember, because I love you, podcast 10, the discount code, gets you an extra 10% off. Okay, number 3. Build cue associations with reinforcement history. Remember that recall is not just a cue. To your dog, it needs to be a predictor of awesome things. If shouting, Fido, come, equals the end of the walk, the loss of freedom, the end of fun, that's actually punishing, isn't it? If, on the other hand, that cue equals sausage, quick movement game, loads of praise, and then straight back out to freedom again, that is really, really powerful. So a practical but really powerful tip here would be practice, recall, reward, and then just immediately release them back to sniff or play. Don't allow yourself to end up in the position where you are just always recalling and then ending the fun. Okay, number 4, introduce engagement as a skill, not an expectation. We have to remember that engagement is trained. It is not automatic. So teach your dog to check in, offer eye contact, and reorient you in easy settings first before you can even remotely dare to expect this is going to happen when you really need it to. And like I said before, I'll say it again, if you want the games, the exercises, or literally the full training plan for this, go and check out my 21-day engagement training program. It is literally designed to help you build next level engagement from the ground up, no matter where you're starting from. And please don't forget to use the code podcast10. Okay, number 5, understand the nervous system of your dog, because dogs in high arousal have reduced cognitive ability. That's a fact, and you cannot change that fact. But what you can influence is their management of their arousal levels. So get involved and help bring them back to baseline, or as close to as possible, before you are asking for complex behaviors. Use calming patterns, give them sniff breaks, licking activities. Think of all of those regulatory behaviors and how you can set them up or how you can encourage them before asking for or expecting high levels of focus. Number 6. Now, this is one that a lot of people skip and wonder why nothing is ever progressing. You need to pre-train emergency patterns. I cannot stress this one enough. If you want to swim for a big charity sponsored national swimming event, right? Do you just hop straight into the English Channel and just head out against the tide, eyes on the French coastline, and you just hope for the best? Or do you begin in the safety of a teaching pool with support, and you've got a professional instructor there who is going to skill you up step by step? Obviously, it's the latter, right? We do the training before the big event so that we have the skills we need to get through the big event. So teach your dog emergency U-turns, scatter cues, and disengagement prompts with oodles of super high value reinforcement before you actually need to use those cues in real life. Because when that squirrel appears or that other dog bowls around the corner, it is already too late for you to teach. So train it now so that you can use it later. Number 7, this is quite an important one. I think a lot of people are aware of this, but I don't know. Work under threshold. So the more time that your dog spends reacting and kicking off, the more those neural pathways strengthen in his brain. It's like the more he does a behavior, the more likely he becomes to choose that behavior in that situation again, which means that your job is to keep your dog under threshold so their brain can learn and not just survive, not just go straight to, I'm panicking, I'll just do this behavior because I know this feels familiar, this pathway is familiar to me. You need to back up. Now, this is a particularly important piece for reactive dogs. You need to back up to the point where they are able to hear you, where they are able to respond, where they are able not to have that reaction. We call that being under threshold. When they go over threshold, they're in that panic state. They're going to have that reaction. The more you allow them to rehearse that, the more likely it is to keep happening. So being aware of your dog's threshold and starting your work under threshold is a really important one. If you are too close to triggers and distractions, back up, create that space for success, because you putting the effort in to set up these successes now makes the successful behaviors a familiar choice to your dog, because you're setting them up to repeatedly rehearse them, right? And it means they are more likely to choose those behaviors going forward. The closer you get, the more real life tests this training. So, those are my rough and ready tips and ideas on how best you can hack the system and start gearing yourself and your dog up for success. But there's something I need you to do that doesn't really involve your dog at all, and it's this mindset shift. Your dog isn't stubborn. They are overstimulated. They are undersupported. They are neurologically overwhelmed. And I need you to believe that, right? Because what you believe about the struggle you are facing will ultimately make or break the success that you have in trying to tackle it, to tackle that problem, to overcome that struggle. And if you want that explaining in detail, go and listen to last week's episode. But in a nutshell, when you shift from blaming the dog to actually understanding the brain and why it's all going on, you get less frustrated and you start training smarter. And if you're doing that, you will start seeing real, lasting change. Okay, so let's recap. If your dog is ignoring you outside, repeat after me. It is not a training failure. It's a biology mismatch. Your voice is trying to compete with a neurological reinforcement machine, and right now it is losing. But you do not need to despair, because you can train your way to focus. It just requires smart strategy and an understanding and acceptance of what's actually going on in their brain, so that you can meet your dog where they are and build from there, one layer at a time. All right, I have definitely gone on for long enough now. So I really hope you found this podcast episode helpful. If you did have any amazing aha moments, or you've got an idea for something that you are going to try as a result of listening to this episode, or a change you're going to make, I would love for you to let me know what resonated. You can DM me, you can tag me on Instagram in your stories. I'm at Listen Dog Training, or you can even leave a review on the podcast itself. It makes my day. Truly, truly it does. Thank you so much for letting me come on your dog walk today. I hope you've had a fabulous one. Please don't forget to subscribe if this episode was helpful. And as always, I will see you same time next week for another episode of The Walk and Talk.